June 21st, 1926, a famous preacher returned after much of America believed she was dead. A mother died trying to save children who were already safe. Gunfire erupted between a smuggler and federal agents on the Detroit River. 60,000 children showed America that Catholic immigrants could no longer be ignored. One of the Mussolini's most powerful rivals fell from a balcony before a cheering crowd, and a new gasoline promised a better future while the workers who made it were going insane. For the first time in history, millions of people could follow the same story at the same time. They could hear the same voice through a radio, read the same headline in the morning paper, argue about the same scandal hundreds of miles apart. And during this week, millions of people followed the same stories. These were the 7 biggest stories of the week ending June 21st, 1926. Number 1. The Desert Resurrection. By 1926, Sister Aimee Semple McPherson was one of the most famous women in America. Millions listened to her radio broadcast. Thousands packed her church in Los Angeles. To her followers, she wasn't just a preacher, she was a celebrity, a spiritual leader, and one of the most influential women in the country. Then, one day, she disappeared. For weeks, America believed something terrible had happened. Newspapers followed the search every day. Prayer vigils were held across the country. Many feared she was drowned in the Pacific Ocean. Weeks passed without answers. The search slowly faded. The headlines grew smaller, and across America, people began accepting that Sister Aimee was never coming back. Then, on June 23rd, she suddenly reappeared near the Mexican border, alive. Her explanation sounded unbelievable. She claimed she had been kidnapped from a California beach, held captive for weeks, and eventually escaped through the desert. But almost immediately, doubts appeared. Reporters noticed inconsistencies. Detectives questioned her story, and rumors began to spread that Aimee had never been kidnapped at all. Some believed she had secretly disappeared with a marine radio engineer and invented the entire kidnapping story to protect her reputation. America instantly split in two. For millions of believers, her returns was a miracle. For millions of skeptics, it looks like one of the biggest scandals of the decades. And that was the question across in America. Was Sister Aimee the victim of a shocking crime or the author of one of the biggest scandals of the 1920s? Number 2. The River War. During the summer of 1926, one of the most dangerous places in America wasn't a battlefield. It was the Detroit River. Every night, speedboats loaded with Canadian whiskey raced toward the United States. Federal agents tried to stop them. The smuggler tried to outrun them. And increasingly, both sides were willing to shoot. The narrow stretch of water separating Canada and America had become one of the busiest smuggling routes in the world. Newspapers followed the cases almost daily. Rumors spread about hidden tunnels, secret landing sites, and fortunes were being made overnight. For many young men, a single trip across the river could earn more money than weeks working in a factory. But the risks were growing. Boats crashed, shoes were exchanged, bodies occasionally washed ashore, and despite the patrol boats, the arrests, and the gunfire, the alcohol kept coming. The government had banned alcohol, but Americans still wanted whiskey. They still wanted beer. They still wanted to fill their bars, the speakeasies, and the dance halls. And the more the government tried to stop it, the more alcohol crossed the river. By the summer of 1926, something had become painfully clear. The law was losing. 7 years later, Prohibition would collapse, but in June 1926, the outcome was already visible. The government wanted sobriety, America wanted alcohol, and every speedboat crossing the Detroit River was showing who would win. Number 3. The Mother Who Never Knew. Earlier in June 1926, a passenger steamboat called the Washington Irving collided with an oil barge hidden inside the thick fog of the Hudson River. The accident shocked New York. Passengers scrambled to safety. Rescue boats rushed toward the sinking vessel, and within minutes, what was supposed to be a peaceful summer excursion had turned into a disaster. Most passengers escaped, but not everyone. 3 people lost their lives. Yet, as the day passed, newspapers became less interested in the wreck itself and more interested in the story of one mother. Her name was Mrs. Lynch. During the chaos, she became convinced that her children were still trapped somewhere inside the sinking ship. Rescuers urged her to leave. She refused. Again and again, she turned back toward the danger, searching for her children, trying to save them. What Mrs. Lynch didn't know was that her children had already been rescued. Another boat had pulled them to safety. They were alive, but in the confusion, nobody managed to tell her, and during her desperate search, she lost her life. 2 weeks later, that was the part of the tragedy people still couldn't stop talking about. Not because it involved a famous person, not because it was a great disaster, but because it revealed something painfully human, a mother's instinct to protect her children, no matter the cost. And that is what made the history so heartbreaking. Mrs. Lynch spent her final moments searching for children who were already safe. Her children survived. She never knew. Number 4. The Pig Woman. In June 1926, America became obsessed with a murder mystery that refused to die. 4 years earlier, a respected pastor and his secret lover had been found murdered beneath an apple tree in New Jersey. The crime shocked the country. Love letters lay scattered beside their bodies. Rumors spread everywhere, and many people suspected that powerful families had buried the truth. Then, the case suddenly exploded back into the headlines. At the center of it all stood a farmer named Jane Gibson. The newspapers called her the Pig Woman because she raised pigs on a small farm near the crime scene. Jane claimed she had ridden her mule into the darkness on the night of the murders, and according to her story, she witnessed the moment leading up to the murders. She said she saw a member of one of the New Jersey's wealthiest families standing beneath the apple tree moments before the shots were fired. If she was telling the truth, she could destroy some of the most powerful people in the state. If she was lying, she was about to trigger one of the biggest scandals of the year. The public couldn't decide. Some believed Jane was the only person brave enough to challenge the wealthy. Others believed she was chasing attention. But as arrests began and the investigation reopened, one thing became impossible to ignore. A poor farmer from the countryside had suddenly become the most important person in one of the America's biggest murder cases. And that was why the history captivated the nation. Not because anyone knew who the killer was, but because millions of Americans were now following the case like a scandal drama. What nobody knew in June 1926 was that the story was only beginning. In the months ahead, the whole Mills case will explode into one of the largest media spectacles America had never seen, and Jane Gibson will find herself at the center of it all. Number 5. The Catholic Takeover. In June 1926, Chicago became the center of one of the largest religious gatherings America had never seen. More than 1 million visitors arrived in the city, but one moment captured everyone's attention. 60,000 children entered Soldier Field and began singing together. For many Americans, the scene looked impressive. For millions of Catholic immigrants, it means something much bigger. For decades, Irish, Italians, and Polish families had been treated as outsiders. Many Americans questioned their loyalty. Some believed Catholics could never truly become part of the country. Then Chicago delivered an answer. Those 60,000 children were the sons and daughters of immigrants, and they weren't gathering in some forgotten neighborhood church. They stood inside one of the America's largest stadiums while the entire country watched. That was the message, not the ceremony. The message was simple. We are here, and there are millions of us. Many Catholics saw the event as the moment of pride. Others watched with growing anxiety. The Ku Klux Klan openly warned that Catholic influence was becoming too powerful. Some Protestants feared the country was changing in ways they would no longer control. By June 1926, the argument was already over. The crowd had arrived, the city had seen them, and America could no longer pretend they weren't part of its future. Number 6. The Fallen Leader. On June 16, 1926, thousands of people gathered in Naples to celebrate Aurelio Padovani. Padovani wasn't just a politician. He was a hero, a powerful speaker, and one of the most popular leaders in southern Italy. Many ordinary Italians trust him more than the politicians in Rome. Even Benito Mussolini had reason to worry about his influence. That afternoon, supporters filled the street below Padovani's apartment, shouting his name and waiting for him to appear. When he stepped onto the fourth-floor balcony to acknowledge the crowd, a loud crack echoed through the street. The entire balcony broke away from the building. 9 people plunged to the pavement. None survived. The celebration turned into chaos. Moments earlier, the crowd had come to cheer their hero. Now, they stood frozen in shock, staring at a pile of stone, dust, and broken bodies. The news spread across Italy almost immediately. Officials called it a tragic accident, an old balcony, too much waste, nothing more, but many people refused to believe it. Padovani had spent years building a loyal following that challenged the growing control of Rome over southern Italy. His popularity created enemies, and his sudden death solved a problem for powerful people. No investigation even proved sabotage. No evidence were confirmed a conspiracy, yet the rumors never disappeared because the timing felt impossible to ignore. The most influential rival to Mussolini in southern Italy died the moment he stepped in front of his supporters, and perhaps that is why the story still lingers. People did not remember a balcony collapsing. They remembered a city watching its champion fall from the sky. Officially, it was an accident. Unofficially, many Italians spent the rest of their lives asking the same question. Was it really? Number 7. Loony Gas. In June 1926, a controversial gasoline returned to American service stations. Just months earlier, workers producing a new fuel additive had begun suffering terrifying symptoms. Some reported hallucinations, others lost their minds completely. Several died. Doctors traced the problem to tetraethyl lead, a chemical designed to make engines run more smoothly. The scandal exploded. Newspapers covered the death. Health experts raised alarm. For a moment, it looks as if the product might disappear forever. It didn't. Instead, the fuel returned. Oil companies insisted it was safe. Government officials approved its sale, and Americans filled their cars with it. Most never saw the factory workers. They never saw the hospital wards. They only saw faster cars and smoother engines. That was the real story. America faced a choice between warnings and profits. The profits won. Lead gasoline will remain on market for decades, spreading across the country and eventually across much of the world. And the men who first paid the price were largely forgotten, because the most dangerous inventions rarely arrive looking dangerous. Sometimes they arrive looking like progress. 100 years later, the headlines may have changed, but the story haven't. A famous preacher returned and divided a nation. Thousands openly challenged a law they hated. A mother gave her life searching for her children. A murder case became a national obsession. Millions gathered to show their strength. A powerful leader died in front of his followers, and a dangerous product reached the public despite the warnings. The world of 1926 feels distant, but the people don't. They chase the same things we do today: power, hope, answers, and some things worth believing in. And while all of this was unfolding across America and Europe, early that month, a baby girl was born in Los Angeles. At the time, nobody could have imagined what she would become. Her name was Norma Jean Mortensen. One day, the world will know her as Marilyn Monroe, but that is a story for another time.